Cheers. So today is the opening day of Colorado Renaissance. I just went through the Starbucks window and grabbed breakfast just like this. They didn't give me like 2 legs. If you just see the top half of this, you could just think I'm like a cottage core person probably, which would be accurate. What they don't know won't hurt them. You might have questions. I started making YouTube videos about movies, and then I got another opportunity to write about movies and stuff. So I now want to dedicate my time to that thing. But on here, I still wanted to make videos every now and then because they're really fun to make. I realized, oh, I could talk about like fantasy related things, maybe D&D. I could talk about cottagecore related things. I could talk about my adventures. In general, I realized my mind in becoming an adult right now, post-graduation, slowly but surely, has also reverted back to just wanting to not grow up at all. I've been consuming any and all fantasy content humanly possible. So expect that kind of stuff on here. Boom, let's get into the actual meat of this video. Colorado Renaissance Festival. Woo! I have only gone to this festival once for one day a few years ago. Needless to say, was a haze. 'Twas a dilly, and I've been wanting to go back ever since, but have not been able to because A, college, B, money, C, global panorama. So I'm gonna be going more than just this one day. Opening weekend was this last weekend, so don't worry. I just wanted to create a little vlog slash this is what I did. If you have an interest in going to a Renaissance festival, this Renaissance festival, maybe just going outside in general. You want that motivation, I'm here for you. There's some little warning labels before we get into talking about the festival. It's a Colorado Renaissance Festival, which means 2 things. It's in Larkspur, Colorado, if you have not heard of it, probably because no one really has unless they go to the Renaissance Festival. Tucked away on a like valley-ish thing in the mountains, I would describe it as. The trek of the festival is very immersive, naturally, but also, there was humidity though, which is weird because we're in this state. Second warning label. Colorado has a very large geek culture, which is really fun. I've grown up in it. It's pretty divided in terms of how progressive of geek culture it is, and the festival, I was a little concerned and where it was going to lie, since it was like, you know, a festival made in the 70s about the Renaissance. Wasn't too bad, didn't have too many bad interactions or anything. I definitely never felt unsafe. I naturally like to plan, so I really wanted to plan this day. I wanted to go all out for opening weekend, for the opening day. There was no festival last year. It's a holiday weekend. It was gonna be a big day. There was gonna be a ton of people. So we had a lot, we planned our day out and it worked out phenomenally. I'm gonna have a section here where I talk about what I wore. So if you don't care, here's your timestamp. I'm gonna probably make timestamps at least down below of the things I talk about, so that way you can move it. I am currently dressed like how I envision one of my D&D characters looks like. She's a dryad, of course.
She's a mammoth, of course.
So going from head to toe, this wig I wore because hearing about the humidity and just knowing I was gonna sweat, my hair was gonna get gross. I tried out Momo O'Brien's tip about wearing your wig back and using your actual roots. Your head can breathe. So shout out, that worked. Didn't move like an inch ever. It looked realistic. I got some compliments on my hair too, and people kind of looking like trying to decide if it was my hair. I have family members ask me because they just forgot I don't have long hair anymore. Still figuring out makeup. It's melting off. I just carried powder around all day and it worked out pretty well. I wore one of my favorite blouses that I wear all the time that I think is from like H&M. My corset was from this company here. It was so exciting to get. It was beautiful and I could adjust it however much I wanted, how tight, how loose, and it still looked great. And it was right in the front, which was super handy. I got a cheap little skirt. I just used embroidery thread and some fake flowers to decorate it up. I also turned my Star-Lord bag I've had for like years into a nice little satchel, and my god was it nice. I had so much room in it. Last but not least, I figured I should carry a water bottle around, so I carried around this potion bottle. This is the potion bottle. I cleaned it out. I've been drinking out of all day. Commitment to immersion. I got it from a convention here in Colorado at some point, and these sellers were there. It was really nice. It was like the perfect size. I know it looks small. So I woke up at 5 a.m. I'm dedicated. Got all dressed up, drove down to meet up with my carpool, and got Starbucks, thank God. We got there about an hour early, really didn't have issues parking, and spent a good 15 minutes just adjusting all of our corsets and what have you, just making sure we looked good and were ready for the day. By the time we got to the front, we were able to see the performers, we could hear them. Slowly as the next 30 minutes passed by, we kind of squeezed together, view went away a little bit, but it's okay because all the acts that were up there were actually a rotation of just the different acts performing across the park the whole day. It was just a little preview show essentially to give you a taste of what was to come. Meanwhile, the royal court stood on the top of the bridge. There was a jester up there who was very creepy, and an even creepier unicorn mascot that is haunting my dreams. So we walked in, and needless to say, just absolutely magical. I like to call this moment when you first enter like a theme park or a festival, things like that, the wow time. You're gonna spend a lot of time just freaking out and being probably a little too overstimulated by just the amount of coolness happening, and it was beautiful. I'm losing it. On the topic of immersion though, this place was oddly way more immersive than I was expecting and remembered it to be. First of all, because there were so many people dressed up this year. People were dedicated this year and super, super into it. Maybe it was the fact that it was opening day. Maybe it's just the fan culture spreading. I don't know. The Renaissance Festival itself also does just a really good job at finding ways to make things immersive. And also people are just so into it that work it at the vendors booth specifically that make it just so fun. They have a lot of different types of performances that you can check out. They plant a bunch of different performers throughout the whole thing. Like a fountain performer over here, and she just like looks like a fountain that's alive. And then you have like this supposedly like street homeless man kind of yells at people and asks for money. Fairies blowing bubbles. I call them the bubble people. There was a guy who was fully dressed up as Link from Legend of Zelda that was like taking tips to play his ocarina. There's also a lot of small details placed throughout the park that I think are permanently there that every year I just find new things. There was a fairy door.
Fairies, come out to play.
Thing I freaked out about for probably way too long was outside of the wand shop, which I'll get into later. There was this recreation of Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights, and I just went off on everyone about the entire history of it. Being the art history major, I'm not. But don't even get me started on the vendors. These are the people that really shape the fair in my opinion. We did our first whole round across the park to just kind of, you know, let everything sink in.
I am going to sell these people out. I'm going to buy everything.
The vendors were just the nicest people. I kept accidentally making friends with a lot of them. Like I spent a good majority of the day making friends with people. The vendors got to decorate the room to however they wanted, and a lot of them did so in really smart ways. There was this one place that was selling tiny dragons that you could clip onto your hair or like your shoulder or something, and they put them all on netting, kind of like how butterflies are kept, and that just blew my mind for some odd reason. There was this little courtyard area inside of one of the castle looking building that was full of costumes, so we all got to rest inside of the castle, which was pretty rad. I'd gotten into a whole conversation with the leather maker over the mushrooms she picked out to put in front of the store.
Little mushrooms. And a man with no body.
The vendors also kind of just would get into it too. There was this one lady selling fairy items that was just singing. Oh. Besides the vendors, you have plenty of different fun activities that you can check out. There's a lot of animals at the fair, which is like a whole thing because the elephants have always been a signature thing of the fair, and this is their last year because they'll be illegal in Colorado next year as they are outsourced. They also have camels that the kids can ride. You can also pretty much throw anything you could think of at something. You can do a crossbow, archery, you could do a ninja star throw, axes, knife throwing, you can throw rotten tomatoes at a man. Whoa! There's a few different rides throughout the park too for kids, specifically in a whole kids area. Adults, don't worry too. They got one of the best forms of entertainment I could possibly think of for you. We pretty much spent the whole beginning of the day figuring out the vendors and seeing the shops, but also getting like the food scope in. Highly recommend if you want to avoid lines, 2 things. A, bring cash because all the food is paid in cash. Don't try to use ATMs there. And 2, look for the food places that aren't obvious. Our first roundabout, there was like nobody. And then we realized it's because we were some of the first people in the park. The second round was the time where we were with the crowds and kind of getting a scope of what was going to be busy. By the time we finished that second round, it was showtime, baby.
Taro.
Ran over to the jousting arena.
My lords and my ladies, welcome to the second joust of the day.
I never seen the jousting before. I am not a sports person. I've gotten really into the Tour de France this past week, I will say. The gymnastics team I watched a little bit too. Now I feel like I can watch the Olympics and like understand a little bit. This joust was beautiful. Apparently it's never been like this. That is a whole new thing this year. That the shows were all gonna be different, that there's kind of a narrative throughout the day with all the shows. But the best part was we went to the show with the first ever woman knight.
Stand with me, and together we will be victorious!
Her name was Sir Lilith, and she was just the coolest. I was in love. Take my heart.
All of you to assume that it will be me in the sand. But if that is your goal, I wish you all the luck in the world. You will certainly need it.
You can hear in the clips I got just how much more I got into it each time something happened.
Come on, Jamesy. Oh, nice. Joust. 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 Oh, stick with flying.
So like they're jousting, right? You know, just the typical like running, hitting each other's swords, but they're not trying to knock each other off of it or anything. But then they're like, no, we're gonna finish this. And they both jump off. And the next thing I know, they're sword fighting. And then they're hand-to-hand combat fighting. And then the next 2 guys start fighting and they pull out a battle axe and a mace. And they start fighting and then they sword fight at the same time. And then they're hand-to-hand combat fighting while the other 2 are, and then one pulls a sword out of nowhere and then stabs my girl Lilith. And not only that, blood went squirting all into the audience. Lilith didn't die, don't worry. She, in fact, decided that they wanted to duel to the death, and they were gonna have a last ceremony at the end of the day. And we were like, well, you betcha, we're gonna be there. We also watched the bird show right after that, and I love my birds. Yeah. They had an owl, which is like hard to get an owl to be a performer, because owls just care about food. But it was really cool to see an owl. I love watching owls move, and also just my Potter brain rot, if it wasn't obvious, but background here. And they had a booth, so you could go see more birds. If you're a bird person, you're gonna love this. Nice. So as the 2 shows ended, I figured it was time for me to get some shopping in. And here's my little Renaissance Fair haul. The first thing I got was a little bit of an impulse buy, but it's only because I've been thinking all week about buying this. I wanted a pendulum, and this is the prettiest pendulum I've seen yet. I'm trying to buy as many cool reflective crystal things to hang in my future bedroom window, because I do plan to turn my bedroom into Howl's bedroom from Howl's Moving Castle. I'm turning my future apartment into a Howl's Moving Castle. This is my first step. The second item is a huge deal. So at the front of the park, they have a crown shop. Like, it's the first thing you see when you walk in. If it wasn't already obvious in this video, I love my tiaras. I've loved them since I became sentient. I had a princess guide when I was a child that I lived by as if it was a Bible because I didn't have a religion. So I adopted princessism as my religion. Through the years, there was always one crown I always wanted and could never find. It's this sucker. I love these things so freaking much. So we fulfilled a childhood need. And that feeling is like one of the best feelings. I mean, you can't tell me, that's some Ophelia goddess looking ish right there. So in the depths of my Potter obsession, which you will see more truly illuminated once I finally make my Wizarding World of Harry Potter video, I found a wand shop there and I became friends with the wand shop keeper. It was truly just because I have such a grand appreciation for wand work. I specifically really like getting wands recently because there's something really fun for me to fidget with. This is the Grand Beauty. It's from their own personal collection, which is very kind of the sci-fi fantasy vibes, if you will. I can't remember off the top of my head what specialness was to the wand. I'm just obsessed with it. I started just waving it around the rest of the day, which I did at Potter World too. I just love wands so much. I also got a few dollars off of getting a wand holder, which I decided that was definitely a good purchase because next time I go to Wizarding World, I'm gonna wear this sucker. They also gave it to me in this beautiful bag. It's a velvet blue bag with some bright tassels on it. My family's growing. Sticks! I got sealing wax because I just needed sealing wax and they had a really cool one. It's really pretty because it's nice and engraved and they gave me instructions. Can you see that? My last purchase, which was a 100% impulse purchase, I got a bird whistle. When we walked into the park, one of the first things I said was, wow, I feel so immersed in this kind of environment. You can even hear the birds chirping. And then I turned and there was a lady using a bird whistle. The fact that it was purposeful made it almost all the better. You fill it with water and then I'm a bird now. So after getting my last bit of shopping in, I just kind of took in some more of the environment, ran into a couple more street performers. It's been a day. I haven't been able to talk much because I'm partying too hard. Done a lot. We've drank, watched the Joust. I'm gonna go to the second Joust because it landed on such a cliffhanger.
It's mightier than the sword. As indeed my real name was from my beloved parents.
And just like that, it was time for the last Joust of the day. I am so stressed about this Joust. We're sitting there. We had saved spots like early for it. And I got a text from my mom asking if we had dodged the storm. And I was like, whoa, what storm? And I look up and I see a couple clouds rolling in and I'm like, okay. Quite literally like a minute or two before the show started, it started to rain.
Round 2, baby. We're in the rain, by the way.
So we all shuffled in between the few trees that you could sit at. When it rains, it pours, and when you're in Colorado, it doesn't pour, it hails.
It's hailing. Oh my god. This is crazy. We're dedicated. I'm getting pummeled. Also, I took my hair off. All the poor performers are walking out in hail. Woo! We got thumbs up. Oh, they have umbrellas. Okay. All the performers are trying not to laugh. Oh my god, this is crazy. Ow! Hail just hit my finger. It's hailing.
Sir Lilith and Sir Jay! Goes to the hair! It is on the stage for the horses! Of these knights will come and finish this matter!
Oh my god.
It was 100% worth it. It was so good. And in case you were on the edge of your seats, yes, Sir Lilith won. And it was just a wonderful way to end the day. We went out back to the parking lot after the show and the rain eased up as we walked out and my skirt flowers did indeed fall off because they got hailed off. But that's okay because I needed to wash the skirt anyway since all the mud got on it from the storm. It was so incredibly fun. I just can't wait to go back and experience it more. If you have any interest in seeing the festival, I highly recommend going to the website, seeing if there's a themed weekend that specifically sparks your interest as it's going through the rest of July and August, and maybe I'll see you there. I'll be posting on my Instagram stories pretty close to live updates when I'm going. Otherwise, I'll maybe be posting on here my experiences afterwards if you want to vicariously live through my vicariously live through my experiences too. I can't get it to stick. Well, thank you for watching this whole video, the craziness of it. I hope you enjoyed, and leave me a comment on if you have any funny Renfair stories, and if you like to see more Renfair stuff or just more this kind of stuff, adventures in the weird fantasy realm and things like that, whatever. Hey, subscribe, ring the bell, like the video. All right, thanks again, and good night.